G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys NBA podcast. I think this is only one of our few podcasts that we're all back in Brizzy together. So welcome back and g'day YouTube. We're finally getting some video up and running. You can put some faces to the names. I'm here with Cal Mack. We're repping the
let's do it.
The Miami Heat jersey.
Miami Heat. I got to rep Miami Heat. I'm on their bandwagon. I'm going to maintain being on their bandwagon for we'll see how long.
As long as
Jimmy's there. That's when he gets traded. Maybe I'll move on.
There you go. And I'm also here with Mike. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate.
We're getting up to your championship, the NBA draft, fast approaching.
Well, yeah, except for the 8th pick. There's not much to be excited at.
Hey, you never know. You never know. As we see in some of these redraft leagues, some of these players would fall a lot later than 8, so who knows? Maybe this year it's the 8th pick that should have been the number 1 pick, so you never know.
You lose optimism as the years go by.
I think, as long as they don't draft someone like Kristaps Porzingis and trade him later for nothing and then use that cap space to sign 3 more power forwards.
That's the good stuff.
We'll see how we go. So, well, today we're doing something different. It's off season. We're doing all sorts of different stuff this off season, but we're looking at we're calling them the draft do-overs. We're giving these teams, these GMs, another chance. You look back at some NBA drafts and there's usually some poor decisions made, some panic decisions. There's over-half players, and we're going to give them another chance. We, the Ball Boys, will be the GMs in their place and make the right decision to correct their pick and rewrite history in the NBA. So the way this will work, we're just going to go through, each going to select for the teams. We'll still go through the same order. We're assuming that there's no trades. So obviously we're picking for the team that originally was supposed to have the pick. And we'll take into account the roster a little bit, but for most of these guys, they were pretty shit, and that's why they're at the top of the draft anyway. Yeah. So we'll see how we go. Cal, did you want to just give us a little bit of a recap on? We're doing the 2011 draft, 2011. What was the sort of start of this draft? How did it go?
I feel like if we want to give it a name, I guess we'll call it the Kawhi Leonard draft, because Kawhi Leonard's pretty clearly probably the best player in this draft. No spoilers. But it's still pretty deep. You've got a lot of players, a lot of good in that mid-range in the lottery, and then also some pretty good role players as well. So, yeah, just to maybe do some highlights, you had a few players like, let's break it down. You had an all-star in Vucevic. You got all-stars in Kemba Walker, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving. Jimmy Butler, of course, is another all-star. And then Isaiah Thomas was actually the 60th pick in this draft.
Well, see, that's what I remember. This is the Isaiah Thomas draft.
It is.
Look, this isn't the Kawhi Leonard draft. This is the Isaiah Thomas draft. It's pick 60. Like
absolute steal. Don't get me wrong.
How many times does the pick 60 actually turn into an NBA player? Let alone 30-point scorer in several seasons and multiple.
Led to the conference finals.
Second team all NBA. Yeah. Jeez, there you go.
It's a pretty reasonable resume. And the last pick in the first round was Jimmy Butler, which is also another big steal.
Yeah.
So the last pick in this draft for both rounds, were, maybe that should be the name of I don't know how we can name it. But.
Yeah, well, so bottom line, it's a deep draft, better than some other drafts. We're hoping to do a few more of those, and I was looking back and there's been some ugly drafts, but this one we've got some talent on the board, so we'll see how we go. So now we're going to go through order. Right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers are on the clock. All right, now Cleveland did pick Kyrie Irving with this pick. It's not a bad pick. He ended up eventually leading them to the championship, brought LeBron back in, but you know what, Cleveland? I'm going to do one better. I'm going to give you Kawhi Leonard.
You got to go Kawhi Leonard.
I'm going to give you Kawhi Leonard.
No question.
It's pretty easy. He's of the players that are playing currently today. I think in our top 15 podcast, you had him at number 1, Cal. I had him at number 2 or 3. I can't really remember, but he's right up there. He's one of the greatest players, top 30, no question, of all time, I would say. Great defender, has developed to an excellent offensive player. So I think this is an easy one. Who cares what they've got on their roster? He can play the 2, he can play the 3, whatever.
He can complement anyone, really. He's done it all. He's multiple Defensive Player of the Year accomplishments, 2-time Finals MVP. Obviously, 2 rings that go with that. So compared to that resume compared to some of the other players, I think it's a pretty easy pick for Cleveland.
Yep.
If you're looking in the future, maybe LeBron's going to come back. Who knows?
Yeah.
Imagine if that happened. Imagine Kawhi with LeBron.
There's we're going to do a few of these draft do-overs, and Cleveland features a fair bit. I reckon if we stick some of these drafts in, they could have an incredible team.
Yeah,
dynasty.
Yeah, so like I said, Kawhi, even just Kawhi and LeBron, full stop right there.
How many rings would that be? That's ridiculous.
That's at least 2 or 3.
Golden State who? Like, that would have been the Cleveland dynasty for sure.
Yeah, you're talking a lot of sliding door moments there, so... No arguments from you, fellas?
No, I think it's a pretty straightforward pick. That's probably the only pick in this draft that you don't have any question of. But I would say, does he reach the highs he does today without the Spurs?
That's a good point. You know, he was drafted to the Spurs.
The development of the Spurs?
Yeah, well... His development as a player, I think, was accelerated, and maybe even his ceiling was raised because he landed at San Antonio.
It's a very good point. You go into the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were a shit show after LeBron left. They had zero talent left on that team. All very bitter that LeBron's left. They're all burning jerseys, things like that. And then you've got the Spurs, who are a model franchise for the, at that point, the last 13 years, and they go on for the next 7 years. Tim Duncan's still there, and Greg Popovich, of course. So it's a legitimate question. I'd have to think that Kawhi would still, he still has the tools. He's still got those ginormous hands and, the defensive instincts that he was drafted at 15 for. But I think he would still develop at least into an all-star or an all-NBA player.
It's a pretty safe pick. If you look at some of his points as well, I feel like the highlight of his career so far is that Toronto ring that he got.
100%.
Putting up 30 points a game throughout the whole playoffs is pretty ridiculous. Not many players have done that before. So huge feat for him, and obviously they won. So pretty. He also averaged over 25 points for 3 seasons in the 16-17, and then the past 2 years as well. So,
and he's basically improved every single year he's been in the NBA until he had that injured season. Every single year, legitimately, every single year, his points per game has increased. Outside of that one anomaly year where he only played 9 games, but that's incredible. Like every single year, and we're not talking about like 2 or 3 years here. This is deep into his career now. He's 9 years in. To improve literally every single year is pretty incredible. So, props to him. I think that's more him, and like I said, the Spurs might have helped, but I think that internal drive he's got is always there.
Also, one of the rare defensive guys who's averaged 2 steals and 1 block a game for a season. He did that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, one of the greatest wing defenders of all time.
Yeah, definitely.
Legitimately. Yeah,
so easily.
All right, here's where things get interesting. The Minnesota Timberwolves are now on the clock.
Minnesota.
All right, and making this pick, we've got Callum McMullen.
It's an exciting pick. I'll say that.
All right.
I feel like there's some pretty good contenders up there. I personally, just because I think he just brings so much value to a team, is Klay Thompson, who's I'm going to pick number 2.
Oh, okay.
Now, let me break it down for you a little bit.
Here we go.
I feel like, let's be honest, I feel like it's a debate between Klay, Jimmy, and Kyrie.
Yes.
I didn't even really have Klay in the debate.
You didn't have Klay in the debate, really, for number 2?
Really?
That's interesting.
And he's the Jimmy guy.
Yeah.
I love Jimmy. I do love Jimmy. But I feel like if you're starting a franchise, Klay Thompson, he's probably one of the best glue guys in history. Like, let's face it.
Yeah.
He can fit with anyone. And he plays defense. So he plays on both ends. I feel like it's undeniable that he's the second best shooter of all time.
Yeah.
So you get that on your team, can play with anyone. The only downside is, and which can be an argument for maybe the Jimmy Butler and the Kyrie Irving, is can he really lead a team as a number 1 option?
Yeah, we've never seen that.
And that's the question. We haven't seen that with Kyrie either.
Fair.
And we only just saw that with Jimmy Butler this season. Brought him to the finals. Did an amazing job. My guy Jimmy. But that being said, look, it's taken... If you look at the whole career, like I'm being a GM, I'm like, what do I have? If I get the best shooter for... Because I feel like he should be able to play until he's 40 or something.
Yeah,
like,
not a long career.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he comes back from his ACL okay.
Yeah, me too. Well, let's say even with his shooting ability, he'll be playing at least 38, just because he can shoot.
Yeah.
And that's where the league is right now. So with that kind of ability and the level he's been performing at, since pretty much, I guess, since his like 2nd or 3rd year, being that elite kind of shooter, I think that just over the course of the career can be viewed as more valuable than what Jimmy brought to the table. If you look at his career so far, the first 5 years are kind of defensive specialist, a lot of development.
Yep.
Klay obviously also developed, but I just feel like he's a better. I think he's just a better glue guy. He's just a real safe pick.
I love it. I love the pick.
Yeah,
I'm surprised, and I commend you for going there. I didn't think that you were going to do it. So congratulations. But
it's with a lot of thought. Like it was a tough pick for me. I'll be honest. It's hard to say no to my guy Jimmy. I mean, I'm wearing a Miami Heat jersey because of my guy Jimmy. Not really, this is D Wade obviously, but still. It's a tough pick.
Are you surprised as I am, Michael, that he didn't pick his boy, Jimmy Butler?
I thought Jimmy was a lock, and if it wasn't Jimmy, it was going to be Kyrie. That's actually really shocked me.
Yeah. Okay. Would you have had him at number 2?
Jimmy Butler?
Klay.
No, I had Klay at 4.
Really?
Wow.
Okay.
No knock on Klay, but I think Golden State was as perfect a landing zone as he could have asked for.
Yeah.
So I think, like, if you play his career out 20 times, this is the absolute best career he has.
Really?
I think the pairing with Steph Curry, with Draymond Green, the system, it just suited him to a T.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and it's obviously hard to knock him on something that I haven't seen him do, but I can't see him going to a shocking franchise like the Timberwolves and being as good a second option without like a Curry to play off.
Yeah, interesting.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, look, I originally, when I was doing this list, I originally did have Klay at 4. But he crept up on my list because I just kept looking at his stats. I kept looking, like, he's the greatest shooter. Like, I was comparing the defensive ability. Like, him and Jimmy Butler, defensively, pretty similar, I would say. Yeah. Jimmy probably gets a few more steals, but just locking a guy down. Klay Thompson switches out, incredible defender, does his job. And just the shooting sets him apart, Jimmy Butler. So instantly, I put him above Jimmy, myself personally. And then it was a decision between Kyrie and Klay. And I could be swayed either way. I think Kyrie, like you said, he's probably can create his own shot a bit better. But in saying that, who knows? We don't know with Klay because he's always had Steph there.
You got some baggage with Kyrie as well.
That's true.
We get that, when we pick it, and injury concerns.
So that's eventually why I end up with Klay over that. So
to me, it was really it was either Jimmy or Klay. I had kind of Kyrie as a lock for 4.
Yeah.
And it was pretty tough. But I feel like if you look at the career, as I was saying before, Klay, he's just going to perform for so long. He's a loyal guy as well. And one knock against Jimmy, if you're a GM, is he kind of only fits a certain build of character. I mean, you saw what happened to him and Kat and Andrew Wiggins. He doesn't tolerate those kind of softies, man.
I don't think that's a knock on.
It's not a knock, but it's still it's a thing you have to think about when you bring him onto your team.
Sure. Yeah. Klay also doesn't fare well in like the BPM and the win shares in that draft class.
Yeah.
Klay's 12th in win shares behind Davis Bertans already and Cantor.
Don't hate on my boy Davis Bertans.
And then BPM, where is he? He's 13th in box plus minus for a career.
It's interesting, and especially if he's playing on a team like Golden State.
He's playing on Golden State.
Now, I'm not smart enough to know how that affects his actual numbers, but, maybe because he's playing on the court a lot when, say, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry on the bench and it's him and Draymond out there, perhaps his numbers are being affected by that.
Potentially.
I don't know. But
You'd think it'd work the other way in the fact that they had such a good starting 5 that when he's off the court,
I would think
potentially with the rotation he's been down.
I'm not smart enough to know. That's my point there. But I think those 3 you could all put there. I think another reason you might have Klay over someone like a Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was a bit of a slow starter in his career.
Yeah.
Took a little while to get going. Klay, his first year, he's averaging 12 points, but then bang, he's on to 16, 18, and then 20 plus for the rest of his career. Incredibly consistent.
And I think it was keep doing that as well.
Yeah, and I don't see that dropping off.
Yeah.
He's had an unfortunate injury with the ACL, so who knows what happens there. But I think, like you said, he's going to have a long career. He's always going to have that shot. Every single year he shot over 40% from 3, which is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
From the get-go. And on big volume too. So shooting lots of threes. You can always have him out there on the court at the end of the games with his free throw percentage. And
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad pick by any means.
It's a safe pick.
Well done.
It's a good pick.
Callum. You put your bias aside. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. There you go. All right, let's move on to Utah, the Utah Jazz with the 3rd pick there on the clock.
All right. Well, I'd originally had Jimmy Butler projected to be taken at 2.
Well, you got to take it to steal and take it now.
This has already messed up my predictions.
You're in scramble mode.
I also had Jimmy Butler at 2.
Yep.
So okay. I'll take him at 3.
Excellent. Okay.
He's...
But you're a hater though, dude.
Sure.
You're a hater.
Prior to this bubble, Jimmy Butler would not be going above Kyrie Irving. But this has changed me.
Okay.
This has changed me. It's shown me he can, 1, be a number 1 option on a winning team.
Yeah.
And 2, he's like, this whole Miami experiment has sort of initially had that sort of locker room almost toxicity to his name. And that's been completely reversed, and now he's like the locker room guy that everyone wants. If you take out his first 3 years where he didn't start a game first year, 8.6 points and then 13 points, and then he got most improved in 14-15 when he jumped to 26-3, which he basically has averaged since then. I don't see that as a huge waiting on him to. I mean, 3 years isn't bad, and he's still relatively productive role player as is. I mean, Kawhi wouldn't have had a way different thing to that. Just started a bit higher. Jimmy Butler's got bar Kawhi. I think he's a better two-way player than Klay Thompson. I think defensively he can lead a team, whereas Klay Thompson's a good one-on-one defender, whereas Jimmy Butler can set.
I think what Jimmy has over Klay is the ability to play make a bit better.
Yeah.
And Klay doesn't really have that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Which supports your point there. But I don't know about because Klay's offense, he's got much more versatility in his offensive game in terms of just having that shot there just creates so much more.
No, I feel like it's not against Jimmy. He can shoot. I feel like he can.
He can't shoot threes.
He can't shoot like Klay, obviously.
He
can shoot threes.
He barely hits one a game.
He's a career 33% shooter.
But you look at his stretch when he was actually. You look at say the 3 biggest points per game. So the 15 all the way to 2018. You look at those years. I mean, he had a 36% and 35% with a reasonable volume. So it's not like he can't shoot.
Yeah, look, but you're comparing him to Klay Thompson, and it's just the respect and the gravity that shot generates. If Klay Thompson's on the court, you
have to go.
You have to get out there. Jimmy, you can hedge and you can get in there, and that changes things in the offensive end of that team. I want to point this thing out for you. If you look at Jimmy Butler's stats, I want to draw your attention to one category: minutes played. Look at these minutes that he played in Chicago in his third season. 38.7, leading the league again the next year. 38.7, 37 minutes, 37 minutes, 37 minutes, and then the year after that in Minnesota, 37 minutes. Look, if you're playing that many minutes in consecutive years, you'd want to be putting up some stats. You'd want to be putting up some stats. Yeah. And if I compare that to someone like
Klay Thompson has more minutes played in the NBA.
Yes, but if you look at
Jimmy's got a lot of kind of little nagging. He's a lot of 60.
Look at his first season. He played 42 games at what was it, 8 minutes a game. So that's a write-off. That's a season that you can completely just take out pretty much. And I think that's the difference. But if you look at the minutes per game and the efficiency and the amount that Klay actually impacts the game in a shorter period of time, the famous game, he scores 60 points in 3 quarters.
Yeah,
that game was ridiculous.
That solidifies to me that I would just rather have a Klay Thompson on my team than a Jimmy Butler.
But look at, for example, this year's playoffs and especially the finals. Jimmy Butler averaged 22, 6 and 6 basically, and 2 steals, which aren't out they're great stats, but they're not outrageous. Yeah. They're not LeBron level stats, but he was still the guy.
Yes.
So the impact you make on the team can go past statistical.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that's again. I'll give a lot of credit to Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah,
he had similar numbers in a Minnesota team, and they were shit. Yeah. And or in a Chicago Bulls team that was led by Tom Thibodeau, and they didn't really go very far either. So
I'll say the Timberwolves argument. We'll talk about the Timberwolves. That year, they were 4th in the packed West when Jimmy goes down, and he does something to his knee. He almost he got some minor surgery. He comes back just before the playoffs, and this wasn't 100%. And they dropped from 4th. This is mid-season. They dropped from 4th all the way to 8th, just scraped the 8th seed, and then obviously they get blown out with an injured Jimmy Butler. So that whole like,
but
and then
that
after
year-
that he wants to leave, and it's like, which is fair enough because he can beat these scrubs with third seeds.
That famous quote. Were we really expecting that team, even when they were at the fourth seed? Were we really expecting
Yeah,
the team
they
to do
weren't a good
anything?
team.
They were a good team. They were a great team.
But we were expecting them to be an actual contender. Like,
Well, I would have expected them to be the fourth seed and then maybe make the second round, as opposed to just getting destroyed in the eighth with an injured
it
Jimmy
reminds me of like, the Oklahoma City Thunder this year. Like, did they get to the fourth seed? But
Yeah.
we weren't expecting them to go anywhere, were we? Like, I think
Might
it's a
make
bit
it
different.
difficult for someone in the first round. That's it.
Butler.
Yeah.
And they did. Like, they brought it to 7.
I really think the system is the change from this year Jimmy Butler and last year, which is like that's fair enough, and
But if
that
you're
is the
a GM
difference in a lot of players.
Yeah.
A lot of players that makes a huge difference.
I mean, look, I was watching a lot of those Philly games last season, and I knew that game time, even playoffs. In the playoffs, you're going to Jimmy. He was putting up similar numbers to what he did in these playoffs. Last playoffs, he put up 19.4 points, 6 rebounds, 5.2 assists, which is pretty much the same. It's just 3 points less.
I will say this year in this Miami Heat team, if you swap Jimmy and Klay, I think they're not doing as well. But I just don't think.
Well, that was the next question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler can lead Miami to the finals as a number one option. Do you think Klay could lead a team to the finals as a number one option?
No.
Probably not that team. Probably not.
Like you're a
He couldn't
GM,
lead any team because he can't create a shot enough, and that's like.
but maybe you develop that a bit more. Like he's specialized.
If he's paired with a good point guard or someone like that, like I think if he's the 1A option, I think
Because like if you make this
potentially
pick and you're like, I need to make a team for Klay, he's my number one.
yeah.
Could happen.
It's a different team than we've ever seen before. Really, like it's almost like a Reggie Miller, Indiana kind of team that you're sort of building around a shooting
great team.
guard. But it would have to be designed a certain kind of way, which is probably maybe a bit more difficult than designing something around a Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on now. Cleveland. Wow, they've come around. They're back on the clock. Cleveland are back on the clock here. And looks like history is repeating itself, kind of.
Maybe.
But instead of Tristan Thompson coming back to they've got Kyrie Irving. Here we go. So already, straight off the bat, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard. Here we go.
Who gets number 2?
Who gets number 2?
Well, they both wear number 2.
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I think the guy who gets drafted first gets
gets
number 2. So I'll give that to my boy Kawhi, and Kyrie can have his famous number 11 that I still regret buying to this day. But look, like I said, we're going to do a few of these drafts, and Cleveland had they done all these right moves, man. I mean, but Kyrie Irving, I think the reason he slipped here, there's probably 2 reasons. I'll say 3 reasons actually. His size and the fact that he's smaller than all these other guys. The fact that he's had multiple injuries over multiple seasons, knees and everything like that. And then also his ability to gel with his teammates. Now, say what you will, he had a rocky sort of relationship with the Celtics but he made it work with LeBron in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Even though there was that,
But then he just wanted to leave him. He was like, I'm done. Get me out.
I can get
force
why
a
you
trade.
want to leave.
Look,
I can get
if
why
you're gonna get an all-star point guard, one of the best point guards in the league when he's healthy, and you're gonna win a championship out of it, I'm taking that with a 4th overall pick, and probably even the 3rd overall pick. Like that's worth it to me, even if his career is shorter than someone like a Jimmy Butler or a Klay, which who knows? With these injuries, maybe he comes good and it's all good. But I think for at that point in the draft, like that's great. You win a championship, like one of the best point guards in the league.
Did you have Kyrie at 4?
I had Kyrie at 3. I had Jimmy Butler at 4. Yeah,
Jimmy Butler, that's disrespect, bro.
I just think if you look at their career, Kyrie Irving was good from the get-go. Now I know it took a little while for his
He was also
to translate to
wins.
wins.
Playing in terrible Cleveland teams.
That Cleveland, we can't overstate how shit this Cleveland team was. Like this Cleveland team was awful.
So
I mean,
and like they didn't translate to winning teams until LeBron got there. So I can't look at it as empty stats.
well, no, I will say that they were also awful at drafting players. On top of that, like next year, I think was it the next year they got Dion Waiters on their team, and
He had a good rookie.
then they got Anthony Bennett. Like so, they never improved from this team really.
No.
Like Tristan Thompson was your second best player for a long time. And that's if that doesn't say anything about your team, then I'm sorry. So of course he's going to win when LeBron gets there, but who's to say had they just been competently managed, he might have actually done something and made his way into the...
What about big Andy Varejao? Big, like, that big 14 season or something crazy?
Oh my gosh, if that's what you're trying to sell me on, Cal.
I'm looking at that roster, it's absolutely trash. Like, some of these could you call them starters? I don't even know what you could say. Ramen Sessions?
Can you name another player outside of Tristan Thompson that's still in the league?
Luke Walton. Was on their roster.
As a player?
As a player.
Oh my lord.
As a player, wore number 32 that season. Luke Walton.
There you go. So look, I'm not penalising too much the fact that he couldn't win before LeBron get there, because who the fuck could, really? Like, I don't think any of these guys, even Kawhi Leonard, really could do much with this team, especially early in their career.
Yeah.
But he's blossomed. And you could argue that skill-wise, just take his dribbling ability, shooting ability, finishing at the rim. He is one of the most skilled point guards
ever,
all time. You compare him to players like, Steph might have a bit more range, but the ball handling's a bit there. Players like Allen Iverson, he's a good comparison. Those small sort of guards. He's one of the most skilled point guards you'll ever see, and it's just as good of a career as you could have asked for outside of the injuries, I could say.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great pick at number 4. Oh
yeah, he couldn't drop past 4.
Yeah. It's a 4-horse race. Yeah. Well, let's be honest. So there's no disrespect to Kyrie going number 4.
Yep.
It's a clear pick at that spot. I will maybe flip that same question I asked before. Can Kyrie take you to the finals? Let's not win a champion. Lead you to the finals like Jimmy did as your number 1 option.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think I have more belief over that than Klay.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're going to have instead of Jimmy, like say you trade Jimmy and Goran Dragic for Kyrie Irving and a comparable wing player who can defend. Yeah, I think that defensive wing is really important. So I think that team still makes it to the finals.
I feel like with the injuries as well. I don't know.
You're forgetting that Bam Adebayo's on that team, and like I'm a huge fan of Bam, but like he transforms that team into a championship team, really. Like that point center, able to switch out, guard players like Tatum, guard players like Kemba Walker. He's
in terms of number 2s though, because he's a clear number 2.
Yeah,
I mean,
but locking down Giannis, all those matchups that got you there.
He's not the best number 2 though. Like if you're talking like in the league perspective, you got Anthony Davis is obviously the best number 2 right now.
Of course,
you got Paul George. I guess the jury's a bit out on him now.
Well,
redemption season next season.
In this specific road to the playoffs, the matchups, I think just were good for Bam to be that sort of guy.
I would argue Jimmy and Bam almost had equal importance to the team.
Yeah, leading up to the finals. In the finals, Jimmy, of course.
Jimmy was.
But Bam was obviously injured in the finals.
Of course,
let's be honest.
Yeah,
it was not 100%.
But like the Bucks series, he'd get blown out if they have a different second option to Bam instead. Like he was so.
Oh, he was very important against Giannis. Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Like we've all been swayed by Jimmy's like those 2 games in the playoffs where he.
I was always in the Jimmy bandwagon, baby.
But leading up to that point, he was averaging like 19 a game.
What about game 1 against Milwaukee when he dropped 40 on them?
Sure,
he has a good game.
Yeah, he had a third. Yeah, but even that averaged it out. It was 19 points a game up until that finals series. So I think if you put Kyrie Irving on that team instead of a 19 point per game Jimmy Butler, who is playing good defense and doing some good things, but I still think that team makes the finals.
Yeah.
But close.
I feel like another knock against Kyrie, because we've been pretty positive. We did kind of touch on it before. I feel like if I'm a GM and I draft him, it's like, do I have this guy for like 5 years or something, and he's just going to fuck off somewhere else? He's going to be restless. He's going to complain all the time.
But in this team, I've got Kawhi Leonard on my team, and I'm a franchise right now. I'm a dynasty waiting to happen. So on this team, I'm not worried to worry about that. Him and Kawhi would get on fine. Actually, they're two weird dudes.
Yeah, wouldn't bother each other.
Yeah.
Well, Kawhi's a pretty fun guy though.
He's a fun guy. All right, let's move on. So we got a bit of a drop off now. We'll go a bit quicker on these picks now. So Toronto Raptors are now on the clock.
Okay. With the 5th pick in the 2011 do-over draft, I will have to take the safe bet with Kemba Walker. Walker. Good pick, solid pick, contributes, can really play with anyone, a bit defensively limited, but I mean, look, the past 5 seasons he's averaged over 20 points a game, which is pretty damn impressive. Even his efficiency isn't that bad either. I mean, there was a few seasons he's getting above 50% field goal, which is effective field goal, which is pretty pretty good for a point guard. Rack up some dimes.
Yeah.
He is pretty small.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a knock. And look, defensively limited, 100%. You have to consider that as the GM. When you take him, you have to definitely kind of get some good, big, long wings to go with him. Is he a number one option? He can be. You're not going to win if you have a number one option. Let's face it. I reckon he's a good number two option in his prime.
Yep.
If you, this is one argument I put up for Kemba before, and this is when we were blessed to see the Boomers, that is the Australian team, beat USA.
Oh yes.
Earlier this year, and Kemba was one of the big players on that USA team.
Yeah, 100%.
And one argument I put up for him was if you switch him and Kyrie around on that Cleveland team, so you put him with LeBron James, I reckon they still win a championship.
Yeah.
I reckon they still do that, 100%. And then look, Kemba's completely different. He's a champion. Who knows what people are saying about him? So as a GM, that's the ceiling I see. Obviously, it's hard to get LeBron James to go with him, but if you get someone else to complement him, if you make him your number two, I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, fair enough. So he obviously arrives there before Kyle Lowry does. So, and Kyle Lowry, Kemba Walker, I think you're looking at someone quite similar there. So Toronto end up winning a championship. So I think that's pretty solid. I also find I like that Kyrie Irving and Kemba Walker went back to back in this draft. Just from the Celtics fan in me and the poetry there. So I can't fault the pick. I think he's a clear number 5 guy there. I think from those top 4 is a bit of a drop off, but definitely Kemba Walker. I couldn't.
Yeah, I think there's a drop off after this too. It's kind of like you have your four man. Well, really, number 1's pretty clear.
Yeah,
and you got 3 men battling for that too. Five's pretty cruisy. I think you got to go Kemba here.
Do you have someone different, Mike?
No, you have to take Kemba. First in games, first in minutes, first in points, first in assists. He dominates the draft class.
Oh,
is that cumulative?
Total.
Not per game.
He's second in points per game and assists.
Yeah.
So,
on your Kyrie Irving comp, I don't know about that one. I don't see Kemba putting up 41 points in game 4 to keep their season alive.
Yeah, I might push back on that a little bit too, Cal.
Yeah, but look, maybe the argument is he's had pretty good, historically, he's not very, injury prone as opposed to Kyrie.
Sure.
That first ring that Golden State won was purely because K-Love's out, Kyrie goes down.
That's a good point.
Let's say they had Kevin Love. Kevin Love's gone, and it's just Kemba and LeBron.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I reckon they win it that season.
So you're not necessarily arguing the one that they did win, but the one they didn't win because Kyrie was injured.
Yeah, that because he's injury prone. And I don't think that Kemba necessarily has that.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. I can't fault you there. Let's move on to the number 6 pick. So Washington being picked by Michael.
So you said there's a bit of a drop off. I think there's still a couple good players in this.
There's still an all-star out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my all-star Nikola Vucevic.
Ooh, Vuce.
Okay.
I was considering Tobias Harris. I don't have much interest in drafting Isaiah Thomas.
How dare you? Isaiah Thomas is a Celtic hero.
I think Vucevic should be a really good comp for John Wall at the Wizards. I think peak John Wall was being effective in pick and roll with Marcin Gortat. So I can't, Vucevic is just plus on that. He's a career double-double guy. He's made an all-star team. He's evolved his game as the NBA has evolved. So I can't see him sort of dying out anytime soon. He's the best big by a decent margin in this draft. I think it was a pretty clear pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love Mr. Vooch. I think he's like you said, he's evolved his game and he's turned himself into this modern day big man, and he'll be around for a little while. The ability to shoot, even if just you point at the most recent playoffs, Orlando had no business beating Milwaukee in a game in his playoffs, and yet they did it on the back of Nikola Vucevic just raining threes.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Taking them to school. So I think the gap between him and Kemba is closer than Vucevic to the next player, in my opinion. Yeah. I think this is like a 2-man. You could. I still pick Kemba every sort of time, but I think it's not too.
It's
far.
a conversation.
Yeah, 100%. If you want a big.
I like the point that you brought up about John Wall with I reckon that'd be such a good combo. Him and Vucevic would have been a great pair.
100%.
As you said, John Wall and Gortat, they were one of the best pick and rolls in the league for years. If you change that to Vuce, who can actually pick and pop as well.
Yeah,
that's huge, and that would help John Wall a lot more. That would make John Wall even better. So great pairing as a GM for the Wizards. I think that's a great pick.
I think it's a win-win. You get the best player available and you get the best pair. So
I'm looking for a job, Washington.
Well, you probably can't do worse than what they've done so far. All right, we'll move on to Sacramento. Now this pick was actually originally traded to the Charlotte Bobcats at the time, and they selected Bismack Biyombo at the time. So I'm going to venture out and say that he won't be appearing on any of our lists.
Oh, hey, don't rule it out yet.
Well, all right, we never know. But my pick here, I had two guys that I was deciding between, and I've ended up going with Tobias Harris at this point here.
Yeah.
I nearly picked Isaiah Thomas. I was nearly voting with my heart here, but I just think that I'm probably going to get more good years out of Tobias Harris just due to his size. In saying that, he's sort of bounced around the league a bit, Tobias Harris. He's gone to several different situations. So a lot of teams, I mean, so was Isaiah Thomas a little bit, but probably doesn't bode well to his sort of career accolades and things like that. But, you know, he's a decent outside shooter. He's a decent rebounder for his position. Outside of that, you know, not the best defender. Can't really play make, but at least he's going to give me, you know, a 20-point scorer or thereabouts for multiple years. So someone who is not awful at defending, who I can just plug and play there. And like I said, Sacramento, I think I don't want to redo the Isaiah Thomas and Boogie Cousins pairing again. So
know how that goes.
Let's try something different, spice it up, and let's give me Toby. What do you guys reckon?
It's a fair pick. I would have done the same. As you said, it's between him and Isaiah. There's an argument that Isaiah's kind of his peak is better.
Ceiling,
for sure.
100%.
Peak, because I mean he's putting up way more points. But Toby's got obviously a bit more on the defensive end. Isaiah's incredibly limited on that end. Toby's one of the rare guys who didn't quite get it, but it was very, very close to get the old 50-40-90 club.
Oh, yeah.
So that's worth reference. So very efficient from the field. So great person to have with an open shot, can kind of fit in with a lot of other players.
And the Philadelphia 76ers actually chose him over Jimmy Butler as well. So maybe there's something to that. Who knows? Maybe he's better than Jimmy Butler. So we just haven't seen
Maybe
it yet.
That's definitely not true.
I'm not being serious.
He's about to break out.
If anyone doesn't get Australian sarcasm, I don't actually mean that. But I think that's just a solid pick, and I know. Yeah, Sacramento. We've had some rough picks. They seem to have this 7th pick or 8th pick every single fucking year. So I don't think this is the one that's going to push them over the edge. But you know, it'll probably get them closer towards the goal.
It's a good asset. You could trade for Blake Griffin for it.
Yeah, there you go. Blake Griffin and Boogie Cousins. What could go wrong?
There we go.
All right, let's move on to the next pick. Picked by Callum, and Detroit Pistons are on the clock. Who you got here?
I touched on it before. It's got to be Isaiah Thomas.
My boy.
The peak of Isaiah, that incredible season that he had, led a team to the Eastern Conference Finals, which Toby Harris hasn't done any time recently, or I don't think he's going to do that in the future, is he?
Isaiah Thomas holds a special place in my heart for that season. He was, that one season was absolutely incredible. So if I could just capture that one season and just hold that and just replay it, then 100%, that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean the kid's 5'9". You just see him play, and it's just an inspiration to us all.
100%.
And as a GM, I want to just pump my fans up. I want to make sure that they're happy watching someone. Like, if he can do it, you can.
He can sell tickets.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what you want at the number 8 pick here. And look, let's read out this season's stats. His peak season: 29 points a game, basically, 6 assists. Don't look at the less than 1 steals and 0.2 blocks and 3 rebounds. Don't worry about that. But this guy just
somebody's there for.
It put the team on the back. 3 threes a game, shooting at 38%. Just an absolute baller. A gutsy effort. He was an all-star that year and the year before, both in Boston. In the playoffs, took us on his back basically after his sister tragically passed away as well. Was just playing like a man possessed, and basically was one of the reasons that we've got that continuation free throw rule now that, you know, guys are coming off the pick and rolls and they just start jumping into the shot and throwing the ball up. He was the guy that sort of started that. They were just getting multiple free throws a game. So, you know, good on you, Isaiah.
Shot 91% from the free throw line in that season.
100%.
In that 29-point season. And
at 8.5 attempts. It's 8.5 attempts a game.
That's very efficient scoring.
That's efficiency 101 right there. Analytics would love that.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then he had his hip injury, you know, which was downplayed and brilliant move by the Celtics to trade him when they sort of knew what was going on. But yeah, I mean, had he not had that hip injury, who knows? Like, maybe he had a couple more of those seasons in him.
Yeah, if you run it back, do you reckon this is one of the kind of top tier Isaiah Thomas seasons that we would have had? Or do you reckon it could be better from a GM's point of view? If I just run it back, could I get
you
more
mean
out?
in Detroit versus what he had in his career? Look, well, he started in Sacramento, so you can't get much worse than that. So I think Detroit is at least a step above that. But are they a step above, you know, someone like Boston? No. I don't think he reaches the peak unless he goes to like a Brad Stevens team. But he's definitely better. And keep in mind, like in the Sacramento team, he did average 20 points a game and 6 assists. Like, he was solid in that team. I think that team had 3 20-point per game scorers in Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins. So he was putting up numbers.
Well, what about, here's the interesting aspect to throw at you. Obviously, he's 5'9". We touched on that.
Yeah.
Maybe he gets a bit too cocky now. Now he's the 8th pick. He doesn't have that thing in his veins, be like, I'm the 60th pick. I'm the last pick in this draft. I'm going to prove myself.
Yeah, true.
Will that change something?
Maybe.
Yeah. 60th pick, little man syndrome.
Yeah.
He loses that chip.
Maybe we get cocky when he's on the 8th pick.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Well, it's something we...
As a GM, I'm going to bank on the 29-point season. I reckon he can replicate that.
Yeah.
So,
you're shooting for the stars at that point.
Yeah.
All the big names off the table.
He's still a big name. He's an all-star. Let's not forget that.
Two-time All-Star.
Two-time all-star.
Yeah, you could make an argument that in terms of peak, he's probably had the second highest peak out of all the players in this draft.
He's had a higher peak than Kemba Walker for sure.
Yeah, I think like that season, like he finished third in MVP. Kyrie's never been in that conversation. Jimmy Butler's never been in that conversation.
Was he really that high? Third?
I think he finished third in MVP voting that
wow.
year.
I do remember just loving.
It was a huge season. They had a lot of wins. I think they would have been first in the conference, surely.
It was a good year to be a Celtics fan that year.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to here's another bit of a drop off. I'm thinking here, but we're moving on to the Charlotte then Bobcats.
With the Bobcats, I think it's not as big a drop off as you think. I'm going to take Jonas Valanciunas.
Really? Okay. I have something different here, but you talk.
I have something different too. That's right.
Pick Jonas and
That's a good pick. That's a good pick.
Originally, I had Bojan at 9.
Here's the guy I've got.
That's why I had as well.
Then I was going through all the stats, the advanced metric, the win shares. Jonas is third in the class in win share. In box plus minus, he's not good in box plus minus, and then he's 10th in VORP, which is basically your value in comparison to an average NBA player.
The analytics does like him. First
in career field goal for the season, for the draft class, and third in total rebounds, and he's getting better. He's coming up. Well, he sort of had a weird year this year, but the prior year we broke out and had, I think, 20-8 or 19-8. He's actually turning into a decently valuable commodity in the NBA, and I think he's got at least 2 or 3 more productive years.
Here's what I'll counter you with those analytics. He does that in limited time against bench players, and he's come off the bench in most of the seasons, especially in Toronto. I remember as a fantasy owner, I was always waiting for that Jonas Valanciunas breakout season where he's going to play 32 minutes a night and put up these insane stats, but it just never came because he just wasn't. He wasn't the kind of player that's going to start and play big minutes. He's sort of almost like that Boban Marjanovic kind of vibe where he'll come on and
he's a bit better. He's a better version. He's better.
He's better, and he's able to stay there for longer. But he's that impact off the bench, like that kind of Montrezl Harrell kind of vibe where he'll come in, put up big stats against a secondary team, and then come back and sit on the bench. So. That's why I end up sliding down a bit.
He still started a fair bit. I reckon as a GM, maybe Michael on the scouting report was like, you know what, maybe he's been underutilized throughout his career. Maybe he's only been he's been playing 25 minutes a game for most of these seasons. If I scratch him up to 32, maybe we got some rings coming my way.
Yeah,
does that sound right, Michael?
Yeah, that's how I was looking at it. Thank you, I mean, look at that. When he got traded to Memphis, he started 17 of the 19 games, played 27 minutes a game. and put up 20 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 54% field goal.
Big season.
Well,
and 1.6 blocks. No, Memphis did not make playoffs.
In Memphis,
Well, and if you look at his per 36 minutes, like this guy's putting up in 1 year per 36, he would have put up 25 and 14 rebounds. Like
huge.
Those are huge numbers. 1.7 blocks. Like he's a per minute beast.
But yeah, I don't think his game lends to winning basketball.
Yeah.
But I think like once you get to this stage of the draft, I'll take a valuable player. Maybe I trade him.
But he impacted a good Toronto winning. Like they won a lot of games.
Yeah. No, he can show that he's been like a more than useful role player in the NBA. And I think, and you have to wait on Bogdanovic, which is another thing. Whereas you get Valanciunas straight away.
That's a good point. And I know you're in the win now mode when you're in Charlotte. Michael
Jordan is putting a lot of pressure on.
Yep, he's keen to get into those playoffs. They get knocked out in 4 games. Yep. All right, let's move on to the Milwaukee Bucks on the draft there. So I actually was trying to figure out where the Milwaukee Bucks were at this point, and that's back in the day where they had Big Andrew Bogut at this point. So
Big Bogut, okay. Did they have Larry on the roster yet? Big Larry Sanders?
I think he came. Well,
later.
He might be on the roster there, but he might have come this year or the year after. But this was the year before Bogut got injured, and then next year
they had Jennings and Ellis were actually an exciting backcourt at this point as well.
They led them to the 8th seed on a losing record.
That comes a couple of years later when they trade Bogut to. Where did he go? Golden State. I think it was after this season. So for that reason, I originally had Bojan going before, so I wasn't going to even take Valanciunas at that point. But since Bojan has fallen down to me, he's going to be my pick. Bojan Bogdanovic. And I know I'm going to have to wait, but that's okay. I think I'm getting a good player who's going to be good for a long time. He's had his best season this last season, coming off 20 points a game in Utah.
20 points a game?
Which is, that's a big season. And he's almost like a small forward, power forward now in today's NBA. I think back then he definitely would have been considered a wing, but now he's sort of playing that stretch 4 position now. But I think just a good shooter, someone who can stretch the floor, and that's really valuable in today's NBA.
Super efficient. Let's touch on these stats here. Mainly this last season. 20 points a game is pretty huge.
Yeah.
He shot 48% from the field, 41% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
So he's very close to that 50-49 club again. So very efficient, complements other players that are shooting. Can get a bucket too. He can actually create his own shot a bit.
He's got a post game.
Yeah.
He's got a post fader. Yeah. I remember that Indiana Cavs series. He was like the strong second option. I think he put up like 17, 18 points in that series.
Yeah, I think you let one slip there, Mike. Letting Bojan come to me. So
I think he's got a few good more years too. Like give him maybe 3 more good seasons. So.
Yeah. So how old is he now?
I think he's 30 now.
Yeah. age 31.
31.
Yeah. So I'd give him another couple more years where he's playing at a solid level, and then he'll probably start to tail off. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that at the 10th pick. Let's move on to Golden State. So they originally selected Klay Thompson. They're on the clock now. Cal, you're up.
All right.
Here's where we get a bit dicey.
it does kind of fall off a cliff here. So there's a few picks. It's pretty tough to really select one of them. But I'm going to take Nikola Mirotic.
Oi, Nikola.
I think it's a smart pick. Great shooter. Is a great fit for a few other players in this league. If you get him, maybe you can bring Giannis along later on. Complements each other perfectly.
Sure.
He's a great kind of third, fourth option. Well, let's go maybe a fourth option. I feel like on a championship team, third option's maybe a bit of a stretch. You'd probably be a reasonable team, playoff team if it's your third, but if it's your fourth option, I think you're doing pretty well. And then I understand he just wanted to go back home. He was getting some contracts from heaps of places in the NBA, but he just wanted to go back home.
This is what I like about the pick here, Cal. I think if he's playing on the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, you get Andrew Bogut coming in, maybe Kevin Durant still comes across. I bet you any money he doesn't want to go back to Europe if he's playing on that team and winning championships.
Yeah, but let's I mean, this is where they took Klay Thompson in the original
of
draft.
course.
So there's no Klay Thompson. You get Nikola Mirotic instead of Klay Thompson.
You get some shooting there.
That's still a shooter.
Yeah.
I think
There's no Klay Thompson.
I think they're still going to potentially win an NBA championship.
No, they're not. No, come on. You're disrespecting Klay now.
Yeah, look, maybe they need Kevin Durant to come across a year earlier.
Well, if you have Durant, yeah. But I'm talking that original Golden State team. The OG team, not the snake in the grass, Kevin Durant.
Hey, maybe they keep Monte Ellis in this scenario. Maybe you've got a Steph Curry, Monte,
Great.
Nikola Mirotic, and Draymond.
Great defensive team.
Don't know about that one.
You still get Iggy coming across. I think that's a contending team.
Contender.
Don't forget, Monte Ellis was a
walking bucket.
People were booing Golden State when they traded him at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Empty stats though.
yeah,
It's not winning basketball.
he still was a bucket though.
That's true.
They're not stopping anyone, but they're scoring, baby. They're scoring. Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. We'll wrap up these last few because, like I said, I think it starts to drop off. We'll put Michael with Utah on the clock, mate.
I put it off for a long time, but I'm gonna have to take my boy Enes Kanter with the.
You take Kanter?
Enes Kanter.
He wasn't on my board. He wasn't even on my board.
I think this is the first time. Yeah, I don't have him in my top 14 here.
Originally he wasn't, and then I looked at his stats, and they're like impressive.
Oh my god.
He's got really.
He
good
started at
career
Utah
stats.
for a few years, didn't he?
Drafted at number 3 in the original draft, by the way. Can we just highlight that?
I was reading some of the reviews, and they were hot on Enes Kanter.
So Utah drafted him at number 3, and you've got him coming back to Utah again. So history repeats itself.
Yeah, I mean, it worked so great the first time.
What could go wrong? I mean, this Utah team actually was a young team that they've got some young players on there that turn into decent players. You know, Gordon Hayward on the team at this time. I think they still had Paul Millsap.
Yeah.
So you know, I think personally I would have gone with a point guard at this point because they didn't have a strong point guard at the time on that roster just yet. I think they originally did Alec Burks at this spot, so I think you could have upgraded there.
Well, in this scenario, they've ended up with Jimmy Butler, so someone that can run the offense a little bit there.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, like I said last time, you're not going to get a great player here, but Kanter, when he's got the right role, which I'll say that OKC season, I think it was 15-16 off the top of my head, where he was that basically sixth-man center coming on for some offense. He averaged 18 and 11 or something relatively impressive.
You love your big guys putting up empty stats, eh? Him and Jonas.
That wasn't
that was
necessarily
affecting winning
empty.
basketball.
They still made the playoffs that season, and he was like a big part of it.
Yeah, okay. All right. Maybe I'm just scarred by watching Enes Kanter guard pick and rolls in the playoffs.
Well, I think he's definitely dropped off a cliff in the last couple of years. Yeah. But he has a role in the NBA. You're not going to get a starter at this point. I don't see any of the available players as starters anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a walking double-double. He's a great offensive player. Maybe someone can teach him how to defend in Utah.
You've ruined my pick here because I originally had Reggie Jackson going to the Utah Jazz at this point. Because
I didn't have Reggie Jackson.
He had some good years at the OKC, and you know, play him alongside Jimmy Butler and Gordon Hayward. Like, he's a good complementary guard piece there.
I mean, that's just guard empty stats. That's Enes Kanter for point guard.
he was putting up numbers when he was playing alongside Westbrook and Durant and things like that.
Sure.
And but like you said, not going to get much at this point in the draft.
Nah.
Did you have someone else at this point, Cal?
I think it's a fair pick. I don't mind it. You go back to, I actually didn't have him on my draft board at all.
Yeah, neither did I.
But if you look at, I mean, I'm not going to knock it. He did affect winning basketball at that OKC team. And if you look back at they were up 3-1 against Golden State. That was Enes Kanter's team.
Was it?
That was his.
That was all him. All right. Let's move on to the second last pick in this redraft, the Phoenix Suns. Now, you stuffed up my pick here because I didn't have Reggie Jackson on the board, but I'm probably not going to go him because at this point the Suns did have Goran Dragic, the Dragon, coming in there. I think, did they still have Steve Nash?
They had Steve Nash.
They still have Steve Nash on the team. So I think it was the last year they had Steve Nash. So
going to really test your GM skills.
yeah. So, but I think this team is looking at tanking for a little while.
Sure.
And I'm going to play the long game, and I'm gonna stash this pick.
Yeah.
I'm going Davis Bertans at this pick.
You're going to take Davis?
I'm getting myself a shooter. I'm foreseeing the future. The league's going shooting.
A 9-year grind.
A 9-year grind, and then I'm getting Davis in here. Just a laser.
How long do you have to wait for Davis?
So he ends up coming in 2016. So 5 years.
5 years.
It's not like he's that great either when he comes. So.
He did average 4 points that first year. But
It's a long stash.
The wait is worth it. This last year, he's averaged
For one season.
15 points per game, shooting 8.7 threes a game. If I'm an analytics, they love him. You know, shooting 42.4%. That's he's a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
So, you know, on a team with him and Dragon, I don't have to worry about defense. I'm going to get more draft picks in the next year. That's my game plan. I'm trusting the process with this pick.
I like it.
I don't like it. I'll be honest, I don't like it. I think there's better players out there. I'm sorry, but he's had one good season.
I didn't want to repeat the Morris situation. Let me try something.
At least you
different.
get like a reasonable player. Morris he just won a ring. Markieff.
You're taking Markieff Morris.
Well, I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying like.
Well, who did you have here?
Did you have someone else?
I didn't have him. I had Markieff and Marcus above him.
Yuck.
Yeah, gross.
Because they're actually contributing, I think, more to a team over the course of like.
Yeah.
I want someone
years.
who fits in with the locker room. You know, gels with the other players.
It sounds like you're probably not going to like my next pick then. I think you're going to hate my next pick.
All right. Well, that's what I won't say too much more on that. But Davis Bertans coming in hot 5 years later.
Outrageous.
All right. Let's move on to the last pick of this redraft. The Houston Rockets. Who have you got here, Cal?
All right, there's a lot of good options on the board.
Yeah.
now that you've
Great
left me
options.
more options after that.
There are some great options.
I'll throw some names out there. I think it's
Yeah.
good
Who
to
you
know what
picking from?
options we do have.
Yeah.
You got both of the Morris twins.
Yep.
Whichever one I'd prefer potentially.
Yep.
Good players there.
They should stay undrafted.
Look, Markieff just won a ring, and he contributed in the finals. I want to pick someone that contributes to winning basketball. I'll make that very clear.
Okay.
I'm going to judge this pick.
Corey Joseph, I'll throw in the air. Great player.
Yeah.
Great player.
He's on the option. Yeah.
If I need a backup point guard, he's first I'm calling up. Instantly. Like Corey Joseph, he can come off my bench and he can contribute to winning basketball. I can imagine a world where Corey Joseph is my backup point guard and I win a championship. You know, that's what I need at this point in the draft. It's the 14th pick.
Cut the shit, Cal. Who are you picking?
I'll break down my pick.
Yeah.
I haven't released a name yet.
Please do.
I'm gonna pick
if it's who I think it is.
Kenneth Fareed is who I'm gonna pick.
Oh no! Yeah.
Yes.
I would have rather you say Chandler Parsons at this point. Like,
No, I'm not picking Channel Parsons. That man
Kenneth
can't stay healthy.
Fareed.
How is Kenneth Fareed contributing to winning basketball?
Please explain this to me. And you're picking him over the Morris twins.
Tristan Thompson won a championship.
I think his peak is better than any of those players. I'm going off the peak. He was the super athletic, absolute hustle player, energy player. If you put him in the NBA now, he's your center, and he just rolls and goes to the rim. He had some big seasons. Look, let me throw some stats out there. 13-9
Whoa.
for like 3 years. That's pretty good.
How was I getting crap for Enes Kanter and then...
I'd much rather.
39, 1 steal, 1 block again. Not quite, 0.9. But that's as close as you can get to 1-on-1.
Look, I'd rather Tristan Thompson.
55%
At
field
that
goal.
point, I'd rather the Morris twins.
Yeah, I had Thompson at 14.
Yep, I'd rather Chandler Parsons, the playboy himself.
I could be talking to Thompson. I could be.
Look,
But I still think the ceiling, I think his peak is better. It was a better peak. His peak was legit.
that's just gross.
He was asked to do more, but Thompson has done exactly what you said you valued in contribute to winning basketball. He was an important role player.
I could be
on the
persuaded
championship
to
team.
Thompson.
He doesn't defend. Like, I know you're trying to sell me on nearly a block, nearly a steal a game, but if he actually just doesn't.
Actually, no, look, I take it back. The
you can't really
12-13 season, he did average 1 block and 1 steal. I take it back. He
there
did
you
do
go.
it.
Oh my God.
He did achieve that feat.
I will let the listeners know that in our pre sort of podcast meeting on our run sheet, I did list the notable draftees in this class, and I did not list Kenneth Fareed in that list. So
Wrongfully. Disrespectfully didn't list Kenneth
you've
Fareed.
gone completely off book.
He played for Team USA. and was great in that role. And that's one of the other arguments I'll say. If you put him with good players,
I see what you're doing here.
Great player.
You're doing what I did, and you're gathering assets. You're trusting the assets.
Get some assets.
You're trying to go into that higher draft pick next year. You're tanking for Anthony Davis. That's right. I see what you're doing here.
I think he could be a 6 man of the year. Playing with bench, energy player, playing like 25 minutes at the bench. Just like he is literally like Montrezl Harrell. He's like
not as good.
He's very similar. Very similar player.
I think we need to go home and watch some Kenneth Faried highlights. He hasn't been in the league for a little while. He's just got to refamiliarise.
The Manimal. Flashback to the Manimal.
Oh, great nickname. Great nickname. If we're drafting on nickname, he's right up there. Before we lose all credibility, I'm going to wrap up the podcast there. For anyone who is listening on YouTube, please hit subscribe, like the video, hit that little bell there so you know when we're popping up some videos. We're going to throw heaps of content up this off season, and if you want to listen to us on the podcast, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we'll be there, and we'll catch you next time with some exciting content.
I would just say before we say goodbye to our listeners, I just want to know, Jimmy Butler, I know you're out there listening. I was kidding about this podcast. I want to take you number one. You're better than Kawhi Leonard. Thank you.
All right, thanks. See ya.